the next session now, where we talk about artificial intelligence, and the title of the session is called AI Issues. But let me just first introduce my panelists today. So I have Raphael di Guisto. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, founder of Silverback Gaming. Allan Petrilli, long-time speaker at our events, VP of Sales and Growth at Intelitics. David Brace, Innovation Director at Continent 8 Technologies. Nick McDonald, Senior Account Director at Fujitsu. So, guys, it's 2023. Everybody's buzzing about this new thing called artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. So everyone's excited, look and screaming like, "Look at us! We got ChatGPT. It's so advanced. It's like we can almost make you hear the coins jiggling in your pocket or something like that." And there's the other side who are concerned. So is it evolving too quickly? Are we ready for ethical implications? So in my opinion, folks, it's a computer. It's a computer program. So it's not a philosophy major. And what can it do? Maybe refuse to generate a poker hand because is having a moral dilemma about social consequences of gambling addiction, stuff like that. So we will delve into these questions. And but first, I would like to ask each and every one of you to give a short introduction about yourself, about your companies, and then we dive into the questions. So let's start up with Nick.
Yeah, thank you, Zoltán. So yeah, Nick McDonald, Account Director at Fujitsu. Probably most people have not heard of us too much in the gaming space in the past, but we've been operating and providing technology stacks to probably some of the largest platform providers globally now for probably the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, but actively over the last, I would say the last 18 months, 2 years. We're sort of going to market to get our name out there a bit more, attending events, doing things like this. And we've also got quite a good story around AI and what we're doing there in other industries, which we can talk about as well. So, yeah, that's myself.
All right, thank you. Raphael.
Hi, Zoltán. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so I'm founder of Silverback. It's my second game studio, currently releasing games in the US via GAN. And so what we do is we make games, and what I'd like to talk about is, how we use the generative AI to, enhance our game concept creation, that kind of stuff. And we're trying to see which areas of the game creation process we can assist ourselves with AI. So that's my background.
All right, David.
Yeah, sure. I'm David Brace. I'm the Innovation Director at Continent 8 Technologies. We're a global hosting, managed service, and cybersecurity provider, pretty much dedicated to the iGaming industry. Been around 25 years and service globally the vast majority of the market, especially in the US for sports and iCasino.
All right, thank you. Allan.
Hey everyone, Allan Petrilli, VP of Sales of Intelitics. We're a tracking analytics platform that services the iGaming industry. Where we kind of fit in with AI is we are utilizing it to build some of our predictive LTV technology throughout the platform. We also have a sister company called Acquire.bet, where we've been doing user acquisition for a better part of 20 years in the game. So, have both the technology and user acquisition angle to hopefully help here.
All right, thank you so much, guys, for the introductions, and just like to kickstart with the first question for the panel, for everyone. So, do you believe that the use of AI in any way hinders the online casino experience? Let's start with Nick.
Yeah, so I suppose hinders is we're not. I'm not at the forefront of running casinos online. I know there's probably other guys here that are, but I think I wouldn't necessarily say it's going to hinder it. I think it's got to be applied in the right manner and used in the right format. I think it can absolutely, my view is it can actually improve it. Other people might have other views on that. And the way that you improve it is, I suppose it's around some of the automation piece around sort of player protection, around sort of age verification, automating that, running that via AI, and proving that that's being done properly. Looking at fraud as well, fraud detection. There's some AI engines out there that can do that. Affordability checks is probably going to be another big thing, especially in online casino spaces in different areas. And I suppose the more people that are creating different AI models in the casino space, they are going to become sort of more readily available and more easily adopted. And I imagine at some point it'll become like a catalogue where a particular casino will be looking at an AI engine to drive a particular, whether that's fraud protection, and they can just go and pick that engine to get that to do that today. One of the difficult areas that we see quite a lot of is there is a lot of people, and you touched on it right at the beginning there, Zoltán, around everyone is talking about AI, right? And I look at it as well. Years ago when cloud first came to market in IT, and everyone was talking about cloud, and wasn't actually many people doing cloud. Whereas obviously now it's fully adopted across many areas. Is that the same in AI? Because we find a lot of customers that we talk to today will come to us from a sort of a board level, very high up, and go, oh yeah, you've got to go and find out about AI. We need to be doing AI. We need to be looking at AI. And then when we actually go back to them and say, right, what's your use case for that AI platform? It all goes very quiet, and no one actually really knows what they want to do with it. It's just that whole, there's a lot around sort of board level discussions that everyone's got to be doing AI, and we need to look at it. There are some absolutely awesome models and good stuff out there, but I guess it's just how that grows and matures as time goes on, really.
All right. Thank you. Raphael.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think hinders is the right word. Definitely we can enhance the player experience. We've definitely found that there are a number of studios out there. We're not the only ones who've started using, Mid-Journey, ChatGPT to create innovative game concepts, to shorten the game creative process time and create more engaging options. However, it's essential to proceed with caution, because there's a lot of legal implications around all that stuff in terms of, what data are these models trained on? Is there any potential IP infringement there? And that kind of stuff. Also, in terms of game design, and player protection, obviously we need to have some robust, controls there. Any game designed by AI or with the help of AI should obviously be subject to all the same kind of testing and constraints. Any kind of anything in the game that would make it more addictive or anything like that has to be very carefully monitored. In the past, we've done working for big operators, whether it's recommendation engines, VIP detections, churn predictions. It can be quite tricky. Recommendations, it's not like Netflix where you have thousands of movies. Essentially, it's like if everybody was watching the same movie over and over again in terms of game choice. So you can't generally just recommend this use the same type of algorithms that you would with a movie recommendation, for example. VIP detection can be quite tricky. What's the difference between a problem gambler and a VIP? Can the AI detection tell the difference? Usually it can't. They're very similar in terms of what the data looks like. And churn prediction, again, it's something that, when is a player about to leave the casino? Obviously that's interesting, but what the AI does with that is then becomes legally and ethically, we have to be very careful about this kind of thing. So I think it could definitely enhance the consumer, the end user experience, but there has to be a lot of checks around that, especially on the ethical and legal side. That would be my perspective.
All right, David.
Yeah, I think for me there is a slight danger that AI is going to become the next blockchain or the next NFT or the next crypto. Is everyone's going to tag it on to something, and it's incredibly powerful technology, and it has so many uses in a wide range of technology, but it's got to be directed at the right thing. Current AI models and engines are very good at pattern analysis or, you know, analyzing content. They're not particularly good at some of the creative elements. You know, they're like you mentioned, there's issues with copyright and plagiarism and that kind of thing. So I think if we look at AI for what it's good at and how we can implement it in the industry, it's going to be fantastic. There's so many use cases for it. On the flip side, I have to bring this up as we're a security company. There's some security risks around it. You mentioned using ChatGPT or open models to refine code. As soon as you put something into ChatGPT, it's public knowledge. So you might upload your proprietary code into ChatGPT and say, hey, analyze this code, look for some errors. But as soon as you put it in there, everyone else can see it. And the final thing is, as the current engines are very good at pattern detection, there is an argument that they could be used to look for flaws in the logic behind casino games. So, you know, they can analyze a vast data set and they could analyze and detect issues with a particular RNG or that kind of thing, which I think that's going to be a risk going forward as well.
All right, Allan?
I guess I'm going to just summarize what everyone said here, because I think they all had really good points. I think at the end of the day, the companies trying to rush to get into AI could definitely open up, front user end issues where it comes to AI models not being ready, personalization not working properly, there being hiccups when it comes to user experience. So I think we just need to make sure that, and I think Nick said this, that we're making sure we adopt AI in a way that's relevant to what each company is building, and not just let's use AI because it's a cool buzz term that everyone wants to be able to put on their website right now. So I think that's obviously really, really important that it's used properly. Obviously, I don't come from a game designing background or running a gambling properly. But at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of functions from an AI perspective that we look at to be able to improve decision-making when it comes to effectively running campaigns through the clients that we work with. And it's just, making sure that we're utilizing the features of AI that are going to let us be able to make decisions faster, but also making sure that those data sets are incredibly relevant and useful, and we're not jumping to conclusions, right? Because I think that is where a lot of the big issues are going to happen. And I think as this industry adopts AI a lot faster, which we're seeing, I'd be shocked if we don't start seeing some significant problems come up with companies trying to move too quickly. All
right. So yeah, let's since you guys raised the ethicals part, I will be the devil's advocate over here and the AI's ethical guard, or should I say? Because I don't think we have to worry that AI will become self-aware, look himself in the mirror, like the server mirror, and then say, what am I doing with my digital life? Am I doing something wrong, pushing people to gamble and stuff like that? So, of course, you guys are going to talk about the ethical issues of using AI. So, same turns, like Nick will start again. So, are there any ethical issues you can see with the use of AI?
Yeah, so I suppose we all know that there are ethical issues without, and I think there's always going to be ethical issues with AI, and without diving into those, I don't want to dive into those too much, but I think one of the things that, especially that we see today where AI is new in the market, we seem to be hearing, and it's typical sort of press and media type stuff, we seem to be hearing all the bad stuff about AI, right? It's always it's the devil watching us, we're being monitored doing this, all these kind of things that we hear, whereas you don't hear so much published about the good stuff that AI is actually doing today. And I think if you look at some of the things that we're doing in healthcare and genomic research around using AI for that, and worker safety in manufacturing and retail environments, about monitoring sort of consumer spend and traffic management, all those kind of good things that AI are doing today and being used for, we seem to be brushing under the carpet and just talking about all the bad stuff. And I think there are going to be ethical issues. We all know that, and it's then going to come down to without how that's regulated and how that governance is put in place in different countries, etc. But yeah, that's my view on it anyway.
All right, Ralph.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are potentially huge ethical concerns. You know, anytime, especially if we talk about the casino industry here, anytime you're dealing with problem gambling, with player behavior, the player protection, this kind of stuff, it's something that needs to be very carefully looked at. You know, I was watching a video by Palantir, company, you know, they works with the US Army and automating war basically, so that. So I think any industry where, you know, the outcome needs to be monitored carefully by somebody, it can be a bit scary what might happen if we let the AI completely loose, in my opinion. But as Nick was saying, I think, you know, there's also a lot of automation and AI, that AI is doing some really good stuff, and can just, you know, automate things that would normally take us much longer to do, and create some processes that are a lot more creative and a lot better generally. So I do think, you know, there are some big ethical considerations, especially in the automation of what, like, for example, pattern analysis. What do we do once we have that pattern? What do we do once we know we have a VIP, or if something, what do we predict? How do we access that? And there needs to be some sort of human element with a human decision, in my opinion anyway. What do we do with that data? What do we do with that information? That would be my take on it, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, David, thank you.
I think from an ethical point of view, AI is just a tool. It's how we use it. And you know, one of the ethical things I would bring up is, for example, large language models. A lot of the commercially available large language models look like magic and witchcraft and sentience, but behind the scenes, there are tens of thousands of effectively outsourced minimum wage employees in far-flung places who are checking what you put in and validating the answers. So it might look like a miracle technology, but there's a huge human input in there that, if it was exposed to end users, might not necessarily sit too comfortably with them. So yes, you could argue that AI is going to change our lives and do these kind of things, but at what cost? You know, is it going to make my life better? That's great, but what about the people who are offshore programmers who are outsourced doing it? So there's a huge kind of ethical concern, not about the implementation, but how the content is generated. And there's been some really interesting instances where people are validating output from a large language model like ChatGPT. You get paid per validation you do. So what are they doing? They're feeding it back into another large language model to validate it. So you're running up with an AI teaching an AI, and you're kind of disappearing off down the rabbit hole at that point in time. So there's just things people need to keep in mind, that, you know, it's not all a panacea, you know?
Yeah. Allan?
Look, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to oversight, right? And you need to make sure that you're not letting any AI models run wild and make decisions without making sure that they align with core values internally, or processes, or any of the, call it legal or problem gambling laws that we as an industry need to make sure that we're following. And make sure that we don't end up in a situation where, you know, AI is to blame for issues that come up in the future when they should have had oversight and review from us as an industry. And I think that would probably be my biggest concern is, you know, can we just continuously point to AI and say, oh, the models did something wrong, wasn't us as a company, you know, and then try to save face. I think at the end of the day, there needs to be oversight and processes in place to make sure that we don't end up down that road. And look, we understand we're a heavily regulated industry. We understand that there's obviously a lot of external pressures when it comes to not doing things that will influence people who should not be gambling, or problem gamblers, or underage, or things like that. I think important also, especially on the user acquisition side, comes down to creative and how we use AI to be able to put together messaging and ads, and make sure that we're utilizing the technology to make sure that we are promoting to, you know, 21 plus people who have interest in what we do as an industry, and not start kind of teetering the line of what we're putting together from ad copy and creative and things like that to try to influence, you know, a generation that maybe shouldn't be utilized in any of the products that we as an industry put out there. So just kind of sum that up, I think at the end of the day, we need oversight on it. I think companies that utilize AI need to make sure that they have that buttoned up, and that we don't end up blaming AI for things that happen for any of our companies or other companies in this industry that go wrong.
All right, David, you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to follow up. Obviously, we listened to a bit of the previous panel talking about advertising and using professional sports people or retired sports people. Does that extend? Do we have to consider into any legislation or rules AI generated content based on the image and likeness or intellectual property of a person? There's the whole thing in the Actors Guild in America on strike because when you sign up to a movie, they take your picture and they can use your picture 1,000 times. I mean, if you did the same with an athlete and you generated AI generated content for an advert, whose fault is that? As Allan said, is that the people who generated the content? Is it the athlete's fault for signing over their image rights? You get into a complex minefield, and it needs consideration not just from our side, but also from the legislative side as well.
All right. So yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I just think our industry is one of the more scrutinized industries globally, right? And obviously, I live in the North American market. I'm in Canada. I think at the end of the day, one of my worries is that not everyone will utilize AI in a way that we all think is, for lack of a better term, kosher. And I think at the end of the day, we all get painted in the same brush as kind of the worst actors in our space, right? So I think at the end of the day, we need to make sure and be transparent as an industry on how we're utilizing AI to improve player experience, improve processes at each of the companies that we work for or run, and don't end up being taken down by one or two bad actors who utilize AI in a way that they shouldn't. And that's obviously going to happen at some point. And I think the more transparent and open we are in terms of how we utilize it, the more we protect ourselves.
All right. So
there's a ton of benefits to it.
I've seen a chart that the searches for AI is now downtrending actually during the summer. So there's lack of interest now being towards ChatGPT probably. So I want to also ask the question, is there a risk of a slippery slope with the AI use, and where should we draw the line? Nick?
Yeah, so I suppose it leads a little bit to what Allan was saying about that whole blame and if something goes wrong with AI, then there is clearly going to be a slippery slope. And just sort of adding to that, there was a case recently around sort of there was a model built for monitoring blood oxygen levels in patients, and the data set that was used with that was from patients with lighter skin, and the AI engine was basically telling everyone that the blood oxygen levels were completely wrong, and resulted in the undertreatment of hypoxia purely because a lot of the patients were with darker skin where the blood oxygen levels run at different levels. And that sort of thing, that was published in a press article, I think it was at the start of the year, and that sort of thing just doesn't get good. It then scares people, I suppose, from using AI. So there is absolutely a risky sort of slope that we can end up going down. But I think the only way that's going to not happen or improve is through regulation and governance in countries or regions around the use of AI. And I know there's a bit of that starting to happen already. But again, going back to what I was saying, we need to talk, and specifically in our industry where, again, what Allan was saying, we don't want people being tarred with the brush that everyone's using AI for the wrong reasons. When we are using it for good reasons and it's proving successful, we should be shouting about it and we should be talking about it. But yeah, that's my take on it.
All right, thank you. Raphael?
Yeah, I think it was David that was talking about this earlier. Models being trained on models, AI being trained on AI data, and we've seen what happens. Like right now, the ChatGPT and everything is being trained on what they're finding on the internet. But if you add a few loops on there, for example, the kind of images that Midjourney might generate stop making sense. Like people will have like 3 fingers, or like so kind of weird stuff happening. And so we have to be a little bit careful about training AI on AI generated data, that loop can be definitely a slippery slope, in my opinion. And the more, I think I can't remember what the percentage of the web at the moment is currently generated by AI, but as that percentage grows, that loop is just generally gonna happen more and more. Obviously, I think on the legal and ethical side, it's a slippery slope. There's a lot of stuff that we don't really understand the legalities of it. But generally, I think it's interesting to keep monitoring these kind of things, just to make sure that we don't cross that line, if that makes sense. Yep.
All right, David.
I think for one of the big risks, and one of the lines where currently we should probably draw and then review in the future, is around the use of data. We make extensive use of data within our industry, and quite a lot of it we say is anonymized. So we make extensive use of anonymized data for advertising, for monitoring spend and fluctuations in industry trends, but there's no such thing as anonymized data to an AI system, to a trained model. They are so good at pattern recognition. Given enough data, they'll be able to identify pretty much anyone from anonymized data. So we've got to be very careful when we start introducing some of the complex AI and generative AI models into data analysis, because at that point in time, all of the data that we're told by regulators or told by compliance officers must be anonymized isn't anonymized at that point in time. So I think that's a huge risk point. And the other one I wanted to bring up is, you're talking about so much stuff on the internet is AI generated. You can get pretty good AI bots. You just have to look at Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. It's besieged by human-like bots. Are we going to get to a stage where you could use a bot to effectively lay off bets or pass bets onto another operator using an army of bots you created that appear to be human? We're getting into this stage where the technology is getting so complex that the current models we use to spot anomalous behavior and bot detection are not going to be good enough anymore. And, from an ethical standpoint, you could say, oh, we'd never do that as a company, but you'd have to be aware of the risk and make sure you're protecting against it as well. So we're getting to the stage where the risks are getting quite serious and need to be taken serious by the industry. But as everyone said, you can't just, flush the baby out with the bathwater. There's such a use case and can improve everything, but it's a big risk.
Right. Thank you. Allan?
Look, I think AI just needs to remain a tool at the end of the day, right? It can't overtake what we all do as a business. We have to be able to utilize it in a way that supports what we're all doing, but remember that it's part of the process and it's not the entire process. And as long as we continue to do that, I think, and we do that properly, I think we avoid some of the slippery slope. And I think, I don't know if it was Raph or Nick who was saying it, but the more that we can shout about the positives that we're using AI for as an industry, whether it's identifying problem gambling or identifying any other myriad of issues that we face, and show that we're not only utilizing AI to be able to increase revenue for each of our companies, but we're utilizing it to be able to protect the end consumer and utilize it in a way that protects us as an industry, then we get buy-in from regulators, we get buy-in from the rest of the industry. So I think that's just important to continue to maintain the use of it for good and be able to shout about that so that we don't get looped into the end of the world, AI is ruining everyone conversation that's happening kind of everywhere you look right now. Yeah. Even this panel, right? I think it was named, I don't know if it was risks of AI or issues of AI, and that seems to be
AI issues. Yeah.
No, but that just ends up, and again, no, that's no shot at you, Zoltán, but that's where AI is now, right? A year ago was, hey, look at all these opportunities with AI, and now it's look at all the dangers, where it's probably somewhere in the middle that we need to be sitting, and now we just got to swing that pendulum back.
Yeah, we talked about this in our first part of the day and in the European Gaming Quarterly meetup, and of course, my final question for this panel is the existential. Now, we can also call it the age-old question about the future of jobs in the iGaming industry and with AI, and people are already looking over their shoulder that maybe they will be someday replaced by an AI. So if your laptop is eyeing your job, you just need to not worry about this thing, because if you're in the iGaming industry and you're worried that the machine is going to replace you, while you are still just trying to remember the passwords, then you're in big trouble, because it's not the machine that wants your job, it's the guy who's programming it, how to maybe shuffle the cards or something like that. So the question here is, should people in the industry have concerns about the future of their jobs as AI continues to develop? So Nick, you're first on this once again.
Okay, yeah. Personally, I don't think, not at all. We're definitely not going to see mass job cuts, and not just in this industry. I think it's talked about all over the place. What I feel it will change is it will change the way people work. And we won't, especially in a back office perspective, I think it possibly will change the jobs people are doing and how they work. They may not be coming into work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, but it will absolutely not bring mass job cuts. I think I sort of look back in our industry from an IT perspective, probably 5 or 6 years ago now, and I don't want to get too technical, but years ago we would sell a computer, a server, a storage box, and some networking with some software, and all of a sudden someone came out with this technology called hyperconverged, and all of a sudden this goes into a single box with servers, storage, and networking just in a box, and you only need to deal with one person rather than someone that looks after the computer, the storage box, the networking box. And then everyone's, oh yeah, but I'm going to lose my job, and because I look after the network or I look after the storage box. And that didn't happen at all. Those people were just bought into the journey of the company. They were re-provisioned to do something else, helping the company grow. So it's not, I personally don't think it's going to have any effect on people's jobs, but like I say, it will change the way we work and the way we operate and things we do and the things that we focus on, I think.
Ross?
Yeah, so I have to disagree a little bit on that. We've seen like a lot of people in the gaming, not necessarily iGaming, but other game studios making games, laying off artists, laying off designers. It's happening. We're hiring them, so we're happy with that. But I was looking at which were the jobs that are most at risk with AI and stuff. Mathematician is one of them. AI can do mathematics like no one else. Game developers, designers, these are all, and I'm saying the jobs, not the roles within the company, not necessarily those jobs, because people might keep their jobs, but they might have to change kind of what they're doing. And it's one of the questions that I think about. What are the jobs that are safe from AI? We're talking about I'm telling my kids learn to be a plumber, a butcher, a teacher, something like that. These are the jobs that are really safe. And it's a tricky question. We talk to, especially on the design side, we have a lot of people, and we're in the process of teaching, giving our team the ability to use AI to leverage it. And it's a tricky conversation, because I remember someone saying to me, look, at the end of the day, AI just replaces jobs. That's what it does, and we don't really see it that way. What I like to see it, what I tend to think about it is like one person can now do the job of 10 people. And when your job, potentially this happens in your industry, whatever industry you are, you can either be replaced by somebody who will do the job of 10 people, or you can be that person who's 10 times more productive, and then ends up, in the long term, not necessarily, it's not like that person's going to be replaced tomorrow, but essentially if less people can do the same amount of productivity as a lot more people, then by definition, some of these jobs are going to be displaced. So all in all, I think it also, some jobs are going to go, some jobs are going to be displaced, new jobs are going to be created, people that are able to do new opportunities, and we don't know what it is, whether it's like getting to expert ChatGPT prompts or mid-journey prompts or something like that. These are the kind of jobs that are coming on. So I think it will displace some, create some, and it's all about kind of trying to figure out which ones are here to stay. And but I do think there's going to be some changes here.
Yeah, maybe in 5 years we'll see senior ChatGPT prompt expert as a.
I've seen it today. This exists. No, for real.
Really? All right, David.
I think they said the same when IBM launched the personal computer, didn't they? There was going to be a miracle device that would free us from from the office, and you'd flip round and you'd have 5-day weekends and only work.
Yeah, right.
It would take over all those jobs. We'd have so much leisure time, but we've just taken that tool, made us more productive, but we actually work more now than we did when IBM first launched the PS1. So I have something's going to happen with AI. Jobs are going to change, and I echo what everyone said. People's jobs are going to change, but it has the ability to make us so much more productive and produce more output. And there's always going to be some things that just can't be done by a computer, be it in the creative industry, the manual side of things. You can have as many assembly robots as you want, but there's some things they are just not good at spotting. So yeah, I just feel you shouldn't be worried, but there will be a change, and you shouldn't be scared of it. You've got to embrace it. And so you've got to learn these skills. You've got to take the free courses on LinkedIn, attend webinars like this and see how you can work within your company to bring AI into your job and make yourself more productive and make yourself key, basically.
All right. Thank you. Allan.
I wholeheartedly agree with David. I was going to say, when the internet started, everyone thought no one was going to have a job, right? And if anything, the internet's created billions of jobs worldwide and continue to allow people to kind of change careers and grow. So do I think there's going to be change? Sure. Do I think some people will lose their current kind of role and what they currently do? I mean, that's been technology over the last billion years. It kind of is what it is, right? Things evolve and people need to evolve. I also do existentially like to think that, a lot of companies do create themselves in order to employ people and grow and build a community. And I don't know that every single company, whether it's in this industry or worldwide, is only out for profits and not wanting to actually kind of build something from the ground up and employ people and give back. So I do think there's a little bit of that. But my real point is, I also think regulation is going to come in at some point, and it's going to make it necessary to employ kind of more people around AI to make sure that it's doing what it says it's doing, and that it's doing it in a proper way. And whether that stalls the growth of AI, whether that makes it not as efficient as we all kind of hope it can be, I do think there's still going to be a lot of roles around it. But for sure, there's going to be certain roles right now that won't necessarily exist in 3, 4, 5 years, but there'll be new roles, right? And if you are currently in a role that you think will not be around in 5 years, it's a good time to start figuring out, where kind of the next opportunity is. And unfortunately, that's just kind of how the world goes, right? So I don't think it's doom and gloom. I think it's really easy to write headlines in the press that say, AI is going to make billions of jobs disappear without talking about all the kind of good it's going to give, right? So I kind of sit in the middle of it. I feel bad for some people who will you lose their jobs, but that's how the world rolls. We got to, you got to figure it out and kind of move with it. And I do think there's tons of opportunity that are going to present itself with it.
All right, so let's end this session on a high note, and just like to say that until an AI can feel the same joy you do when you hit a jackpot, or maybe the same dread when you go all in and lose, we're just irreplaceable, fantastic. We're human, right? So that may not be done by an AI anytime. So thank you guys for this great session. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope our audience also did, because we still have 390 viewers on YouTube. So with this, if you have some closing remarks you would like to add to the session, you are more than welcome.
I'm gonna say, if someone can build an AI to mow my lawn every week, I'd pay for that.
I mean, that exists, right? There's solar powered as well, right? So you just leave it out.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it
I live
doesn't
in
work if you have a
Canada, so
dog.
when the snow comes, it becomes difficult,
Yeah.
Right, Nick, want to add something?
Right, no, it was just the only piece I was going to add was around sustainability, because I know it's a hot topic for everyone at the moment. Again, a bit like AI, but actually AI is probably driving sustainability goals way above where they shouldn't be, because ultimately AI is huge amounts of compute, huge amounts of data sat somewhere. whether that's in a cloud generated place or a colo type data center. And I think people have got to be aware of that piece as well, when companies are going to be setting, and we're setting it as an organization, huge sustainability goals, and using AI engines may not be a great contributor to doing that. So but yeah, no, that was all I was going to add, really.
All right, Raphael, closing words.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's been a hype in the last few year or so. What is the next blockchain or whatever, and that we'll see that die off a little bit. But there will. I also think there'll be some interesting changes in the future coming up. But what those will be exactly remains to be seen. Yeah,
David.
Yeah, I was going to echo that. I think it's a massively exciting field, and it's just in its nascence. But there isn't. We're all talking about AI, but there isn't really artificial intelligence now. That's going to come, and as they always say on Archer, that's how you get Skynet. But in reality, there's so much more to come out of the industry, and when we understand it better, it's just going to be such an exciting time, for a tech nerd anyway. So
yeah. Allan.
Just it's funny, I saw right before I came on here that I think it was Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and Elon are meeting at the Capitol in some closed meeting today about AI. So maybe we'll see not more important than this panel, but maybe we'll see some creeps about regulation coming out. But look, I think at the end of the day, the most important thing now is make sure that what you're doing is for good, right? Because regulation is going to come, and if you get too ahead of yourself, then you're going to have a lot of backtracking to do. And I think that's really important. And also to say, if you're not looking at AI, I think it's time to start looking at it, right? I think you run the risk of really falling behind the competition if you don't understand how AI can help your company. So even if you're in a company where you don't think it can, I think it's time you start reviewing and looking at opportunities before it's too late.
You heard it, folks, and that's some great closing words. So thank you for sticking around, and we'll see you in November once again. Take good care.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Zoltán.
Thank you, Zoltán.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.